I see it.
Okay. Great, thank you. This is the property committee meeting called to order.
Nope. Policy.
Sorry, what did I say? Property.
Property.
God. Start over. This is the policy committee. Thank you, Greg. Calling to order at 4:57 on December 17th. Okay, so we have a quorum with Mr. Davis and Dr. Maddox. We also have Mr. Fisher and Dr. Watley here to help us, and Crystal, who I haven't met, but I think she's here, part of your team, Dr. Watley.
Absolutely. She's the director of social work.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Crystal. Okay, so let's get started. First item is to approve the minutes from 10:29. I did go through these myself and make sure they matched my notes, so I think they're in good shape. Thanks to Angela. Any comments or concerns about the minutes from the 29th? Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think we would like to amend the agenda for today since we have a shortened meeting. And there's a few items that we thought we could get on the agenda and have time to discuss, but they're not really ready yet. So first of all, I propose that we remove F2, F3, and F4 and push those to January. Meredith has not really had a chance to work through them. She's been quite busy with all the contact tracing, I understand. So we'd like to move those to January or potentially even later. They mostly were having to do with financial and risk management and insurance.
I don't see them on the list. Where are they? What numbers are they?
Sorry, it was EBBG, EBBGR1, and EG. So,
unless I'm blind as a bat, which I am.
New business.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
New
I see it.
business
Okay,
number
okay. I see it.
F2, 3, and 4, risk management and insurance management.
Okay.
So Mr. Fisher recommended that we run those past Meredith and in human resources, and she just hasn't had a chance to do it yet. So
Okay.
we'll take those 3 off. And then Angela, I think given the amount of time, I'd like to move forward the student suspension policy, which is 14 and 15. Can we move those up to position 9 before dress code? And otherwise, all the other policies are, oh no, sorry, there's student immunizations, which is 18. Maybe we could move that one up as well. And then all in front of dress code, and then we can pause at dress code and push those to the rest to January. Because the rest of them are just review only, I think. Did I get that right?
I think you're right.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Your main revisions were just the suspensions and then the immunizations. All the others were, oh no, there's the seclusion and restraint one,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Let's move that one up to JGF2, that's in position 21.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I doubt we'll get to the rest of them, but that'll get the really critical ones for moving forward for the January meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager.
Okay, so Dr. Thomas, did you have any reports for us today?
We've got to adopt the agenda.
Oh, sorry, we have to adopt the agenda. Sorry.
I move that we adopt the agenda as specified after the changes were made.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Sorry, thanks, Greg. Okay, moving on to the superintendent report.
And I was just going to say thank you all for your hard work. We've talked in different settings, but have not really talked as this group since our cognitive visit, and they were very complimentary of all of the work and effort that's gone on through policy committee. So I just want to thank you. I know it was it was a grueling process, and but it did not go unnoticed, and a lot of work was accomplished. So I just wanted to acknowledge that work and also share that Cognia recognized it as well.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of people did a lot of work, so I appreciate that. And I was going to just say the same. The person I spoke with did commend me. She took note that we had really taken the bull by the horns and moved forward and coordinated a big team of people. So we got the job done. She encouraged me two different things, one of which I have as an action item today, and the other one I'd like to just reinforce for next year is, the first one is that we revisit our BBC policy again and make it formal that only the committee members can really participate in the meetings. Other board members can certainly join and listen, but she was really pointed about the occasions where other board members, you know, like when I go to a finance committee meeting and start asking questions, she was really discouraging that because it is the issue of the quorum. So you'll see that I put BBC here on the agenda to add a
Can I-
sentence.
Okay,
Yes, go ahead.
where did this come from? I'm sorry, I didn't hear who you had this
This-
discussion with.
This was the Cognia person. Her name was Dr. Anderson, I think, Dr. Cynthia Anderson.
Yes.
And she really followed up on one of the directives, which was to be careful about having a quorum at committee meetings.
She brought it up in my session. She brought it up in the session with Dr. Gant, and it came up probably three, or if it came up with you, I know it came up like in 4 or 5 different settings with them.
Yeah,
I certainly don't want to be on the bad side after a whole year of investigation, but I talked to Mike earlier today because I'm a little bit at a quandary on this one, and I don't, I let Mike say about the legal aspects of it, but just as an example, the last the Government Relations Committee before last, we had 7 members there talking about TAD. We had, to me, all the questions that were being asked by board members and committee members alike were, non-committee members or committee members alike were valid and helpful. And I guess I'm looking more for a discussion around this. And now Cognia did not talk to me about this, so I did not get lectured to on this one. So I kind of missed that opportunity. So I may not understand the full flavor, but I did talk with John too, and I'm just reading what Cognia said and trying to apply it to making this change, and to the fact that the Cognia originally raised it because it said that the board chair was a de facto member of every committee. That was on our website. It was not in our policy. So I say all that just to say I see a healthy discussion on that, Patricia. So I don't see, at least from my standpoint, a simple rubber stamping.
Dr. Yeager, and I think, and I'm not sure what your understanding or clarity was from them, but what I gathered almost was, so if we use the example of the government relations meeting about TADs, recognizing that that's something that the entire board or majority of the board would have questions about and want to engage in, I wonder if their suggestion would be then that becomes a call board meeting rather than a government relations meeting.
exactly.
So you can't have that conversation, but if it's a topic that is of such interest that the entire board or majority of the board needs to engage with it, delve deeper into it, then rather than call it a committee meeting, call it a call board meeting. Because, and actually what you just gave, Mr. Davis, is an excellent example. So what they said was, you're essentially doing the work of the board in a committee. And that's an excellent example of that, because that is a large, significant issue in regards to TADS. And it's something that really needed full board understanding of, so that we could move forward and make appropriate decisions on behalf of those we represent, those you represent. So what I think Cognia would have said back to that is, if it's something of that level, so they said essentially a committee meeting should be one that you handle whatever that business is and you report it back out to the whole board. If it's an issue so grand in scale or interest that the entire board needs to be involved in it, then it needs to be a call board meeting. Now that's how I interpret it. Is that your interpretation, Dr. Yeager? And when you
That's
look that way, it makes sense. So something like TADS, and if we needed to ask, if we needed to talk to Mike, we needed to talk to Byron, we needed to get clarity, we needed to understand, if we need to all be there, then it needs to be a board meeting.
Exactly.
If it's that heavy and that's something of a issue that we have to make a decision about, and that to me was an issue that required very deep understanding so we could make the decision that people felt was most responsible, then it needed to be a board meeting.
Well, we did discuss it at a board meeting. We spent about 2 hours on it.
Right, but then we did that even deeper at government relations.
Yeah.
So it could have been a call board meeting to discuss TAD. I think that's what they were, that's my understanding, Dr. Yeager.
Yeah, and if we had some policy, like say we start getting involved in the security and the police and, you know, the discussion we're hoping to have this spring about all the different issues of safety, I think that needs to come. I mean, we review it in policy committee, but it becomes a pretty major full board discussion. It's not something the policy committee is going to make a decision about, and then the board's not, the rest of the board's not going to think about it. But I think what I understood from her was that we're jeopardizing how our committees have a, you know, operate by having too many board members at our committee meetings. They're not really committee meetings anymore. If there's more than 4 people, 4 board members here participating, that becomes a board meeting. And then, you know, we're not advertising them as board meetings. So maybe Mr. Pruitt could give us his overview if there is one, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't know what this Dr. Anderson's concern was, because I didn't talk to her. If it's a governance issue, I'll leave that to her. From a Open Meetings Act standpoint, I think that's it's an advertised public meeting of the board that people can show up at and speak, and to say that the 5th board member couldn't be one of those people who show up and speak but don't have a vote, that seems like it's parsing it pretty fine to me from a legal standpoint. I've been dealing with the Open Meetings Act my whole career, and I don't know, I've never seen a case, AG opinion, anything that parsed it quite that finely. So I'm not sure where she's coming from on that. But if it's a governance issue, I'll stand back.
Well, I want to point out that the Government Relations Committee, and that, you know, hand be slapped if necessary, but from the very beginnings of it, you know, of course, the idea came from Ovita, but we always had community input. Jesse Evans has spoken that, and so for
It doesn't impact community input. It impacts board participation, board member participation.
I guess I don't mean to have the discussion now. I just say,
okay.
I have, you know, and I'll give one other example and then I will hush up. And that is the last Government Relations Committee meeting, when we were talking about setting the agenda for the joint board, school board, county commission meeting. We mentioned Envision Athens as perhaps being a possible clearinghouse, and Linda was present. Linda may have information on Envision Athens and could have maybe pushed that discussion a little bit further, but because the expectation was that she would not participate because she's not a member of the Government Relations Committee is to me nonsensical. But anyway, I'm not, I don't want to take you off your agenda, but I'm just saying that's something that I will raise again.
Okay, well, I stand warned. The other piece that I was going to mention that I got from Cognia was an encouragement to establish a regular review process to avoid having to repeat what we just did 5 years from now when all these policies come back due again. So I think Mr. Harris and I have committed ourselves to setting up a process that will hopefully outlive both of us to regularly review. We have the text in our policy that we will review every 5 years, but we didn't have a process. So hopefully we'll come up with something more reliable than the past. So that was the only two things I was going to mention based on my conversation with Cognia. Okay, so let's move forward to new business, which is policy number 1 is policy DO. So Dr. Maddox, I'm glad you're here. We had conversations prior about how you wanted us to try to find a way to include community in the priorities for surplus. And so there was a suggested edit that we put together. And then I understand Mr. Harris has talked with Mr. Fisher about how this would actually be implemented. And if I understand correctly, maybe Mr. Harris, you want to speak to this, but the recommendation would be to remove the words priority, but just leave citizens of Athens Clarke County shall be given consideration, because the act of giving them priority is going to make some things very, very difficult for the implementation of the policy. So Mr. Harris, maybe you want to speak a little more, Mr. Fisher, about how complicated it would be for you to give priority to local groups.
I'm happy to defer to Mr. Fisher. Dexter, if there's anything you want me to add, I can do it as well. But I think Dr. Yeager, you kind of hit the nail on the head around, as we discussed it, the priority piece was really hard to determine. How do we determine who gets priority? And then there were some other implications that Mr. Fisher's team went over with me around how surplus works. So Mr. Fisher, is there anything you want to add to that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Harris and Dr. Yeager. Yeah, our team met and went over the policy, and again, we felt a little bit uncomfortable about the priority because again, we couldn't determine who would be a priority. You know, what nonprofit would have the opportunity to select some of these items that would be in surplus. So we just thought that it would possibly put the school district in a little bit of a situation that we had to say, okay, this nonprofit has the right to get, if we're talking about laptops, or you know, who to decide what nonprofits get the items. So we just felt like that priority should be taken out of that particular piece of the document. Also, we just want everybody to be aware, especially when we're looking at technology and our laptops. Now, the laptops that we normally get rid of surplus, those laptops are 5 to 7 years old. Most of them, they're not efficient. There's a great security risk because what happens is once we're done with the laptops, all the operation systems are taken off of those laptops. And so what you're getting pretty much is just a shell. Only thing you're getting is just that laptop. So whoever get that laptop, it will be up to them to put whatever operating systems they would want to put on those particular laptops. Like I said, again, also, you know, our hard drives have to be wiped clean, and which we would do. The way we do it now is because we have so many laptops, we bid that out in a lot. For they'll bid it out together, and then that vendor is responsible for wiping out all those operating systems, anything that was on those hard drives. And of course, as a district, we receive money. They pay us to use those laptops, and they use those laptops to refurbish or to use those on the sale once they get them. So it is a financial gain for the school district when we dispose of those items.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Harris transmitted to me this morning that if we started selling these shells or giving these shells to community members, they might come back to us and say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't work, you know, and we don't have anybody that would be able to help them do that work. It would just create I think a big back and forth as well that might be problematic. Anyway, what I heard from this, I guess it was like a 2-hour discussion, Mr. Harris or Mr. Fisher. It was a long conversation
was a
about
long
how complicated this would be.
Yeah, it was. And our team, you know, they was, and of course, you know, we want to be as supportive if we can to our community. And I understand that, you know, laptops or either desktops would be helpful to some of our nonprofits, but you know, we just don't want to give them, you know, when they get the laptop or the desktop, they're just not very workable. That's why we are disposed of them, because they're no good to us anymore, even with the operating systems that we're using.
Can I give a little bit of history to this? When I got hired by the school district in 2009, my first job was to distribute hundreds of laptops to parents and families of our students, and I built on that program in 2009, 2010 into 2011. What we did was the school district partnered with Free IT, and they had the agreement to wipe as Mr. Fisher said, wipe out the entire system. I mean, in terms of the operating system, and then they installed Ubuntu, which is it's a program that's affiliated with Linux, but it's in the open domain. Yeah. And then those we distributed to parents and actually offered classes. I mean, parents were required to take like 3 or 4 classes on the technology with their students present, ideally. You know, we distributed hundreds of laptops that way. Now, we never got any feedback in terms of, I mean, and let me just go one step further. And when a parent received a laptop, and eventually we'd actually sold them for like $25. But in all cases, the parent had to absolve the school district from any maintenance on those computers. So, you know, I don't know how effective those computers were, but I know it was good PR for us. And then once the recession hit and family engagement got cut back and everything, then the school district started taking these old computers and literally putting them on pallets, wrapping them up in plastic. And this is after they've been cleaned out and then shipped. I was told they were being shipped into South America, but I don't know where they went. But they were sold, as Mr. Fisher said, in bulk. So we do have there is another way of looking at this, and I'm not saying that in terms of the numbers of computers. You know, I don't want to exclude what we successfully did in the past by this policy. So,
well, so that's why we left in the word consideration. So removing the priority word and just having consideration so that it's a reminder to the group that does this work to, oh yeah, think about, is there a straightforward way of offering these to someone in the community before we do whatever the other alternative is. And I understood from Mr. Harris's reporting about the meeting is that everyone in your staff, Mr. Fisher, is aware and would like to do this more. So by putting this sentence in, we give them something to hang on when they decide to try to think about how to do this, but we're not requiring them to do it. I guess, is sort of the first baby step in the right direction.
My whole thing is, I think if we consider the, number of nonprofits who work with the young people in our district for free, like work and give, time, it's a partnership. And being that I actually led a process doing this a few years ago where there weren't people complaining, there were 21 nonprofit organizations and churches. I think I sent y'all all that information that, signed up. It was just pretty much if you work with, students in the Clark County School District. It didn't even say if you had a 501c3, but that could be a way to do it. But if you work with, students, in our district, it's a short piece of paperwork. They had to come to training where, again, the laptops were loaded with Ubuntu, Linux operating system, and they had to go through training before they even received those, the youth director or whoever was over those youth programs. And so 20 laptops or computers went to many churches, a lot of the nonprofits that work with our children every day. And I think that is a very good use because they were able to have, I know several churches, just as a community person, I volunteered and taught computer classes for free, and so I think if we want to make a commitment, if we want to be intentional about that, there is a way of doing it, and it wasn't complicated with people complaining, because like you said, it's at your risk. Once you take these computers, this is at your risk.
Yeah.
Rather than shipping them off. I understand about making the money, but sometimes it's also about capacity building for our community. And that's where I'm coming from with that, because it's not just computers. And the other thing is, when I first brought this up a few months ago, I was told that like this only happens only so many years. Like it's not like this is something that happens every year, according to what Taylor said. So this is something that happens every 4 or 5 years. Why not be intentional about supporting our community before shipping this equipment? Because it's also printers, also iPads. It's not just laptops. And so that's why I feel strongly about this. It's not something that's done. I'm not saying every time 3 laptops, go into surplus, they got to be, we got to do community. No, I'm saying when we have those big years of transitioning laptops and technology out, those are the years that I'm referring to.
So I have a question. So with the systems that get put on there, who pays for the system get put on the laptops that get donated to the nonprofits?
Okay, Ubuntu is a operating system that is free.
It's
It
free.
is what's the analogy when it's open
Open
source?
source.
Open source.
It's
So
open,
you don't pay for it. It's open source.
it is akin to Lexus, but it is free. It's a word. Well, anyway, yeah.
So can I make a suggestion just to move us forward? If everyone's comfortable with leaving the word consideration and removing the word priority, we pass this policy through, but then maybe during 2021, Dr. Maddox, we can work together to create sort of a regulation of how at least some of this might help, or Mr. Fisher, maybe, let's take the time we might need to think about how we could do this in a way that doesn't use, I think what I heard was that would take a whole nother staff person, which we don't have, to do a lot of the prioritization. But maybe that
We did
with
that
some of
in
your
one
ideas. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't agree with that. We did that and it was done. It didn't
Okay.
take another staff person. I think it's an opportunity where the district can partner, like we partner with Free IT. Like I wasn't a part of the district, but I facilitated workshops.
Okay.
Partner with people in the community who want, it's a way that we can start collaborating more. Everything does not have to be, every finger and touch has to be done by the district.
Okay.
we talk about community and schools. That's what I'm saying. We could work closer together as a community and people who have the expertise who would not charge and be happy to help to roll out. And that's what we had. We had volunteers having to roll that out along with, I think, the family engagement people. That's who I work with.
Okay.
See, I want
So
the
it's not like
policy.
Oh, let
Yeah,
me,
I
let me,
want-
let me clarify something. When Dr. Yeager talked about adding another staff person, we would have to have, from a manpower standpoint, the onus is on school district though to wipe those systems clean. So that's where the manpower would come in. Well, we would have to do that. We can't partner with anybody.
Okay, I hear you on that.
That would be on us. So I think that's what she was talking about from that standpoint. So that would be on us to make sure that if we gonna get into nonprofits, we would have to be the ones who have to wipe those systems clean.
Okay, Mr. Fisher, it was a two-step process. Okay, and the first step is what you have to do anyway. I mean, if I'm a teacher in Clark County School District and my grade book is listed on my computer, I don't think you're gonna release that computer until that's wiped out.
Right.
Okay, so
I think the company does that, right? I'm sorry, Mr. Davis. From what I was told, the company that whomever I don't want to call it a contract, but whomever Taylor and those work with to dispose of those devices, they actually have a process where they go through and they wipe the devices clean and
That's
then
correct.
pay whatever it is that they pay to Clark
You
County.
trade them in, don't you, Dexter?
Sir,
You trade them in when you're buying new stuff, right?
you say trade in?
Right.
Well, not necessarily. What happens is I wish y'all could see our warehouse right now because they on paddocks. I mean, they stacked up. So what happens, Mr. Pruitt, is we bid it out to a vendor, like I say, in bulk. And once we look at, and Ms. Jackson, she worked with us on that process. And once we look at the best bidder for that, then that company then will come in and wipe out all the hard drives on all those laptops, desktops, iPads, wherever we have in bulk, they will wipe those systems clean. And then we get paid.
Wait. So who's wiping it? The person who's buying, or the company that's buying them? Or you hiring a third party, the company? So we're trusting the company that buys them to wipe them clean.
That's the
Yes,
same
sir.
thing then. That's the same thing as I was cleaning. If we're trusting somebody else to clean it, that's the same thing unless we contracted a vendor that specializes in cleaning and that vendor would be responsible for paying for that service. But to let somebody else still come in from the outside, that it's going to be their equipment and we trust them to clean it. I'll
see, Mr. Fisher, if Mr. Duke can get on, even though I don't want to get too far off because I know Dr. Yeager has an agenda and we have another meeting soon, but I will see if I can get Mr. Duke on the phone.
Okay.
Okay, can I share something? I got
Yes,
this
sir.
from Morgan Stanley. We contracted, it says, as is customary, we contracted with a vendor to remove the data from the devices. We subsequently learned that certain devices believed to have been wiped of all information still contain some data. So they just gave me a warning that my financial records have been not wiped clean. Now, my understanding was that the school district would wipe out personal data. That's what was explained to me, that in terms of stuff that student records and things like that, but that the reason why it was turned in to IT to wipe out the operating system is because those could not be licensed. It was a licensing issue.
Right.
Okay, and so I hope that we're not giving vendors bundles of computers that have literal student information on them, hoping that they are wiping them out, because that would make me real nervous.
Well,
So I saw the wipeout as a two-step process. One, personal data that the teachers and staff have added to the computer in terms of data, that the school district does that, and then somebody else takes care of the operating system because of the licensing issues.
Is Mr. Duke be able to join us?
we able to get him. Were you able to get him, Dr. Thomas?
Yes, I just reached him. I just sent him the link and he's about to join. And I'm taking one call and I will be right back as well. But I sent him the link and he's about to join.
Great, thank
Let me
you.
make an observation while he's jumping in there. So let's talk about the legalities of gratuities again. As you know, we can't just give stuff away no matter how good the cause. However, we can use our resources to further education. So a couple months ago, when Dr. Maddox sent us the material she was talking about, there was actually a contract in there with the recipients of these computers and devices that they're going to use this for education of CCSD students.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm not worried about gratuities if we're following that model. That seemed to
Yep.
follow it pretty well. Now, that may take some time from CSD personnel to make sure these computers are wipe clean or need to happen where they're given to those entities, but legally that works. So I guess we'll see what Taylor has to add.
There he is.
Like he's coming on now.
Hello.
Hey, thank you for joining us,
Sure.
Mr. Duke. Okay, so we're talking about the property, surplus property going to the community and how difficult of a prospect that is or isn't. Dr. Maddox, do you want to give him the main question?
The main question, I mean, it has to do with the priorities. It goes back to what Dexter says. I don't know what the main question is. I don't know where we are with
But I
this.
think what may be helpful, just talk about our process a little bit about, the way we're doing it now. And then so you all maybe understand a little bit about that, or how we dispose of the laptops, laptop, desktop, iPads. Talk a little bit about that. And Taylor, because of his technology background, can maybe explain a little bit better for what we do right now. So if you can talk about that a little bit, Taylor, so they'll have an understanding for how we dispose of the computers we have now.
Sure. Right now, what's happening is the vendor, whoever wins the bid from Veronica, is certifying that they're wiping the devices. When we collect the devices back, we're not spending the time ourselves wiping them because the vendor's doing it for us. That's the big time.
Do you know where that certification is, Taylor? Is it in the RFP?
No, they give us a certificate.
They give us a certificate.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there any kind of qualifications they have to do that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay, here's what my question is, Taylor. My understanding was that at least the school district, I mean, if we have personal student data, social security numbers, maybe that's the way a teacher keeps track of their students or whatever. I'm talking about the actual under documents and Excel spreadsheets and things like that. We don't touch those either. I mean, we literally take that computer that the teacher's been using for 3 and 4 and 5 years, and we literally will sell that computer to a vendor with a certificate that they're going to wipe out everything.
Yes, sir. They are certifying that they are wiping the computers clean for us.
Okay. I just shared with somebody, I got a letter from Morgan Stanley. That's what they do. And they got caught where they're complete the process, and the stuff is now in the ozone. I'm just, so teachers aren't even asked to wipe out data. I mean, so we literally sell machines that have student data on them.
They're given to the vendor as is. The vendor is giving a certificate back that they are wiping the computers clean.
Boy, I have problems with that. I really do.
So Taylor, let's talk a little bit about if we open the our sale up to the community and we have to and we get the computers back from our teachers, from our students, what would be the requirement on our part to make sure that the computers are clean and wiped, you know, if we give it out to the community to use?
Sure. If we give them out to the community, what we will do is we will wipe the data off of them. We can't, for Windows computers, we can't sell them with Windows. Do the license way it's licensed, so we'll put a free operating system on it and sell them that way. So there's the process of pulling them back, you know, having a place to store them, a place to clean them, to install new operating system on them, and then give them back to the community.
So are we utilizing free IT anymore or not?
No, we tried to do that last time and couldn't get a response from them.
So it sounded to me like in that discussion, Mr. Duke, was another staff member would be required to do this, or?
No, we pull we do it ourselves. So if we're actually, you know, cleaning computers, we're not serving the students and staff of Clark County School District. We're getting old computers ready to give community.
Yeah, okay. So, Dr. Maddox, are you still thinking we need to use the word priority, or are you just okay for now with consideration?
I'm okay today, but I'd definitely like to have another full discussion about this.
Okay.
Yeah, I can live with it for today, but 2021 definitely want to come back to this discussion.
Okay. And maybe set up as some sort of
As
a,
part of the board meeting is what maybe an agenda item a little bit further into step one of, I know when before, how I even thought about this is that someone had asked me about surplus, and then I didn't realize that we voted, you know, when they say that we agree to allow the equipment to be sold, that we were actually, not to be sold, when we agreed that we would getting new equipment, that we then were also agreeing for the surplus, a big surplus to happen, a major surplus to happen, which happened this year. And so, you know, not being, you know, it's on the system, you can go read it, but we wouldn't really be in tune to know that. And so I just think looking at the steps from being notified when there's going to be a major sale to all the way up to what we were talking about today. What would it take during those major sales, you know, years that we were able to work better with getting these computers to the community? Like, will we have, how much time would it take to have another person added? How much money would that take for that particular process? So I just thinking that through, you know, allowing them to kind of think it through and then maybe coming back together on that. But I've seen it done, and it worked very well. And we were organizations that were helping Clark County School District students. So
what we can do, Dr. Maddox, is sort of like we did with the when we did the desk and chair, we can give we can always, I guess not use the word priority, but what we can say is, okay, we're gonna do this, say we're gonna do a laptop sale. The priority would be for Athens Clark County parents who have students in the school system, or for a nonprofit that works with our children in the school system. And what we did with the, I can use the desks and chairs, parents that had children in the district, they brought proof that they had kids in the school system. So the nonprofit can do the same thing. We know you're a nonprofit, okay, and we can sell you this laptop. If that's the case, if that's the route that we want to go.
Yeah, well, I like that. I can live with that.
Great, and then there
Well,
might
that's
be
a good idea, Mr.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I can live with that.
I was just gonna say, and then that certification that you mentioned about the nonprofits would be good.
Yeah, so they'll know when they come and pick up the laptop that this is a nonprofit and we can get them that laptop. Or if there's a parent who wants to get a laptop and their kids are in our school system, we can get them a laptop.
Did you want to say anything else, Mr. Pruitt? I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, no, I interrupted you. So to give some meaning, I'm not sure what gain if you just say citizens shall be given consideration. That I don't get, but I think what Mr. Fisher was saying sounds more like, and I thought about this before the meeting started, to say something like the superintendent may authorize a priority program for Athens Clarke County citizens or residents or something to that effect, so that it can be done on a case-by-case basis. I still don't think that solves the problem that we're talking about with Dr. Maddox, because you got to figure out how to actually wipe things clean, but it would at least authorize, for example, with those desks and chairs, that's in effect what happened, which really, and Veronica and I talked about that a couple of times, that really wasn't authorized in our policy. We just did it.
Yeah,
If we had some statement like that, that would truly authorize the superintendent to say to Dexter, okay, we got these surplus desks and chairs for 1 month. I want you to offer them to every Clarke County parent that wants them. Anything you got left, just sell them at auction or whatever you did.
Okay, so instead of that sentence that we wrote, what I wrote down quickly, Angela, was the superintendent may authorize a priority process, I think that's what you said, for ACC residents on a case-by-case basis. Did I get that right? Okay, I can give that to you in an email, Angela. Okay, so does that work, Dr. Maddox?
yeah, it does. Yeah. One question for Taylor. When is the next time that we will have a major technology transition?
The next big purchase we'll have will be in first year SPLOS 6. So we're talking like a year and a half away.
Okay. Okay.
And maybe we can, fine tune this a little bit and get ready and make considerations and plan, and we can plan for it.
Yeah, and definitely come back to that clean. I am concerned about the way that we're, allowing vendors to clean our machines with data on it. So maybe a year and a half with a big purchase, we can come, I look forward to hearing how we can work better with that.
Keep in mind, most of our data is in the cloud these days. So
Okay.
it's not Office and Excel and things like it used to be.
Okay.
Okay. Angela, I just stuck what the sentence in the text so everyone can see it. The superintendent may authorize a priority process for Athens Clarke County residents on a case-by-case basis. Does that work?
Yes, it does.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Duke, for jumping on to help us with this.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Taylor.
Not,
Yeah.
Mr. Davis?
yeah, I'm just saying, I'm still not comfortable with it. One of the problems I see, and I would like to wonder if Dr. Fisher's team can go back. I think we need to differentiate between computers that potentially have student data and teacher data on them, and things like desks and tables and things that do not have personal or work-related data on them. I just think that I think this policy is really dated because it really doesn't speak to the technology. Now, I appreciate Mr. Duke saying that everything's in the cloud. I know the way that I do stuff, and a lot of stuff should be in the cloud, but it's not. And I would not like someone to get hold of my laptop, even in terms of school business. So
Okay.
I'm asking for differentiation between electronic devices and other non-electronic devices, particularly, So anyway, that's what I'm suggesting.
What if instead, Greg, we looked at I think we worked through some student data, student information policies earlier this year. Maybe we need to just add an electronic statement to those.
But this is where I would look to, you know, if I was going to find out about the status of surplus, I would look under surplus. I would not look under student data. So I just think that this policy needs to be updated. So I'm not comfortable with just moving it on because I'm afraid that, you know, we're just kind of moving it on to be moving it on.
Dr. Yeager, we can, if we aren't comfortable moving it on, we can pull it and continue to do the work if it sounds like we're going to be doing the work on it anyway, early spring. I mean, we can work as a team to try to get the language that everybody's asking for and maybe do another go at separating technology from other physical assets and bring it back just so we can make sure we get through some of the other items as well.
Now, if we're going to handicap anything that's coming up with a nonprofit community, I don't want to do that. So if I need to vote on a change just to make it, to get us through a few months, I will do that. But I'm not, but it has to be with the understanding of what Mr. Harris just said, because it's not an up-to-date policy in my opinion.
Well, Greg, I'm good with, we have 1.5 years at minimum, so I'm good with just taking our time. I'm not in a rush like that.
Okay, but the thing is, I don't want somebody from Atlanta coming in and buying 30 desks from us when we've got, you see, that's what I thought was sparking this.
Oh, so I see what you're saying. I'm with you now. I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay.
So is that going to keep us from if we have another desk, $5 desk sale, somebody from Atlanta coming in saying, I'll buy everything you got?
Oh,
Even without the policy, we were still able to prioritize local
Exactly.
residents. So we
Okay.
did the desk sale without this policy even being changed. And our actions and behavior was that we would prioritize our local citizens. So the policy didn't block us
Okay.
from being able to do that.
Okay. Then I would say, let's just work on it, like Mr. Harris said, and bring it back in the spring.
So we're going to postpone DO. We're not going to pass it as revised right now.
That's just my opinion.
We go ahead and make a motion.
I make a motion that we table. That we send it back to Mr. Harris, Mr. Fisher, and the staff to make certain changes based on this discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It is 5:49.
Sorry, Patricia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything we can do real fast?
Well, I don't know. That's the problem. I mean, obviously, we were then going to talk about BBC, which it sounds like is also controversial. Dr. Watley, is there a way we could do some of your J policies in a few minutes? The revisions seemed absolutely expected and great to me. So maybe those were ones we can push through today.
Well, we can try. I think they kind of, to your point, made sense. Hey, Dr. Maddox.
Hello.
So I guess officially I need to make a motion that we postpone policy. The EBBG is still in the agenda. So I'm going to say we're going to postpone items 2, 3, 4, 5 and jump straight to policy LDAJA. Does that work? And let Dr. Watley take over?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for LDAJA.
Or do you want to postpone that one as well?
Well, we can talk about it. I think that Mike had some concerns and questions about that one.
Okay.
Yeah, when I spoke to Crystal, we and Crystal, I think you're still on the line. The child abuse and neglect is addressed in another policy, and so we may need to rescind this one. And Mike, if you're still on here, I don't know if you remember reviewing this one.
He recommended that we rescind it, actually.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And
Yeah, and I was coming at it from the standpoint of worried about interrogations for things other than a student who's being questioned or arrested for a crime they're accused of. like a child that's being questioned by a defects worker because there's suspected abuse. You know, we're not going to call the mom or the dad or whoever this abusing parent is in that case.
Right.
Okay. So is there a word we can add to this to retain this sense of having a school staff member present for any sort of police interrogation? Or do we just rescind the whole thing? I don't want to lose having some protection for the student if they're being interrogated by criminal justice people.
I think I need to have a better understanding of what current practice is, because I just,
Okay, then I'm going to move,
Yeah.
we postpone this one to January
Right.
as well then.
okay.
And let's
Okay.
just see if we can pass JDD, JGDR1 and JGF2 and JGCB. Those are the four
Okay.
revisions that Dr. Watley worked hard on this past month.
Yeah.
And it's 5:52. So do you want to just tell us what you did?
Okay, absolutely. For JDD, we included the piece about suspending for students with 504s and special education students, and also added some language in here about manifestation hearings and due process hearings, and the 10-day rule that if special ed students, you know, they cannot be, or even students with 504s cannot be suspended beyond those 10 days need, you know, those are important for the for suspension calculation. So those are the critical pieces that we added to this that we felt like were missing.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions or comments about that? That's the same for both the policy and the reg, right? Both.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, and then the same for JGF2.
The JGF2 completely had been stripped. We do not use prones, neither do we use chemical restraints. And so we use positive behavioral supports and professional discretion, even with that. So we just completely used some of the language for what Rockdale had put in their policy. And we just updated this one completely.
Great, thank you for that, because that was a horrible policy.
Yeah.
And then finally, JGCB, which was a revision of student immunizations.
Absolutely. We noted just the change with the 2208 form for immunizations that need to be exempted for religious reasons. So that was the only change that was made, and that's the update with DPH.
Okay, great. So can I have a motion to move?
Can I just ask a question
Okay,
real quick?
Sure.
When we talk about physical restraint, and I don't know what common practice is now, but
Yeah.
are we talking, if there's a fight with two fourth graders and you're restraining the two kids, I mean, different staff members, does this policy is that totally different? Or
Well,
that would not be covered in this policy, that situation?
well,
We're talking about special education.
There is a limited use of physical restraint in the policy, Greg. It's a whole 2 paragraphs. But go ahead, Dr. Watley.
Can you
Sorry.
click on it again, Ms. Tillman?
click on again. Yeah.
Says in order to protect the safety of students and others, the board authorizes the use of reasonable and appropriate action, including physical restraint by its employees where the use of physical restraint is necessary to prevent harm to students or others, and when the student is not responsive to less intensive de-escalation techniques. And then there's another paragraph.
Okay.
But I think
that's
that
fine.
addresses your point.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And
That's fine.
just to jump in, Dr. Watley,
Yes.
unless there is like a life-threatening type of harm,
Yeah.
people that restrain are those who are restraint trained. And
Yes.
we currently use mindset training for that, and it begins with de-escalation and then teaches how to engage in safe restraint. There are documents that we have to submit if a student has been restrained. You have to notify the parent. You have to switch in and out every so many minutes. I mean, it's a full protocol and a full, 2 or 3 day training with a required assessment at the end for any individual to be restraint approved.
And that's even if if a fight breaks out in my classroom.
It's not the same.
Well-
Usually not a fight is not what this is about. Is that right, Dr. Watley?
You're absolutely right, Dr. Thomas. A fight, Dr. Davis, would be just a simple, like just pulling kids apart and trying to keep them from each other. You may do like a simple basket hold if a child is fighting like that, but that's a form of a restraint, but usually you don't have to use it. In this case, we're talking about students who are posing a danger to themselves or others. You know, somebody wielding a weapon or coming at someone, you know.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
we have students, especially at the elementary level, who are physically engaging in harmful behaviors. They're hitting their heads against the wall, or they're punching, or they're doing some type of self-harm, and we have to like restrain on the floor a full certified restraint. And you probably see that more at the elementary level than you do with secondary students.
yeah, and I'm not disputing that at all, you know, about students with special needs and that type of thing. But I guess I'm just, as a regular classroom teacher, I don't know if I read this policy and I've got one kid that stands up and goes over to another kid and begins punching him. I'm saying, well, I'm not qualified to restrain that student. Hopefully no teacher would say that, but I just, like I said, I didn't think we were going to get this far down in the discussion. So I did not study this policy because I didn't know you were going to move it up. But I just want to make sure that if I vote to move it forward, that we're not that's covering, it's not saying more than we want it to say. That's all.
Well, the second paragraph says, in determining when and how to implement this regulation, any associated procedures, educators will have to exercise their professional judgment and discretion. So it seems to account for that.
But they don't need special training necessarily.
No,
Because you
no.
want to train your teachers about restraint, you know, have a whole 3-day workshop on restraint. I mean, that would be a waste.
No, that's not what this is for. That's correct.
Okay. If
No.
y'all assure me that that's all.
However, Mr. Davis, under social emotional learning, and let's just step back. Mindset training has two components, right? One component is de-escalating. I'm just going to bring you down, because the goal is not to put your hands on a child.
Right.
But if that child is aggressively coming towards you, which you typically find that with, like Dr. Thomas said, your elementary school students, or maybe students with an emotional behavior disorder or some type of special needs, when they're so aggressive that they may be coming towards you. This is in that particular type of situation. Now, if there's a fight, typically you'll find that most administrators or teachers will just pull the kids away as long as you're separating them. But, you know, we don't expect teachers to go in and fully engage into a full-on restraint as you would with a student who requires that. There, you know, and there's I hate to say that there's like a profile for that. You get trained on knowing when that is required, and for typical day-to-day, that's not a requirement in a general ed setting.
Okay, I mean, having been a high school teacher, I've broken up a lot of fights, and I put my hands on a student, and other staff members had hands on another student. And so I've been in that situation dozens of times. Well, I wouldn't say dozen, maybe a dozen times. So I just didn't know. I think kids have not outgrown that yet. You know, I mean, I know it's a different century, but kids are
Fights
kids.
are still real, and they happen every day. And I think we almost use more informal language when you're talking about breaking up a fight versus seclusion and restraint. Like seclusion and restraint, and that terminology is very specific terminology versus breaking up a fight.
Oh, yeah.
I note that those definitions are in the bottom of the policy.
Yeah, I made sure to kind of put those there, Dr. Yeager, just so people can understand.
Okay, if y'all assure me that what we're talking about I'm fine with it. But I'm
Well,
putting
you
my.
still have a chance to review it again
Sure.
for the work session, Greg.
Sure. Okay.
So it's 6:01. Can I entertain? Oh, Mr. Pruitt, sorry.
I haven't reviewed these. and I don't know if Andrea has or not. I didn't get these till Monday. You notice there's no attorney comments on the new ones. I
Right,
did try to look at them. I did have some questions on them,
okay.
but if you don't want legal review on these, fine.
Well, of course, I don't not want legal review on these.
I like that sentence structure. I don't, that sounds like how I'm feeling right now. I don't not.
All right, so are we postponing these as well then until? we
Okay.
review?
I would love for Mike to review them. I thought he had reviewed
Yeah.
them. So yeah, Mike, I would love for you to review them too. So
Good discussion, though. Good
It's-
discussions.
it's very critical work because this is an area where I think it can leave us very vulnerable with the seclusion and restraint from the previous policy. So definitely, yeah, I want Mike to take a look at that. Yeah, so we can always come back and revisit in January.
All right, we will do that. Thank you, everyone. I guess I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
I'm gone to finance. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If I'm a leave, oh, there it is.
Me either.